we're also thinking about, again, all of you, knowing that you're not in your normal routine. You're not on campus like I know many of you will prefer to be. You're at home, you're trying to study, you're trying to maintain a good prayer life. And we were just thinking, what are some of the things that you're probably facing and asking the Lord about? And so we're going to kind of do more interview style, kind of have you facilitate some questions that we thought would be helpful, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, so just starting, it's like a huge transition. And so it's not just a place, it's a whole different kind of life. Whereas in college, at least in my experience, I was surrounded by friends. We were hanging out a lot. It was very social. My faith life was enriched by being around my friends, but I learned a lot through people I was around. But now everyone's at home. We're sheltered in place. So I'm wondering, what does it look like to live a healthy spiritual life when you're basically isolated on your own?
That's a very good question. Of course, the irony is we began Ash Wednesday by telling all of you, get a small group, surround yourself with people, and then, of course, we had to avoid people for the stay-in-place quarantine. And probably the greatest thing we need to do is recognizing that we may not have the people around us that we would, again, anticipate. At college, you have your small groups, you have your group of friends, you have those people you often connect with. That's not available. They still are to some extent, right? So please be calling, talking over Zoom or Google Hangouts, whatever media you can use. Continue that by all means. But recognizing that you won't physically be around them, but that being said, we still have people around us. That's going to be our parents. It's going to be our siblings. And Jesus, of course, gave us that great command, love your neighbor. And who is your neighbor in that situation? Well, the people you're living with. And to say, Lord, can I love them well? Can I start there? And that can take much patience, much kindness, compassion, again, adjustment, all that stuff. But to say, Lord, can I love them? And also then to say, you probably began lots of spiritual practices when you're here at MSU. You already maybe began them for Lent, and now we're in Easter already. And to say, Lord, what are those things I can hang on to? It's not going to be the exact same, but I've been taught things. I've been taught about how to pray with Scripture. Maybe to do Lectio Divina, maybe to pray part of the Rosary. And so to simply review and say, all right, Lord, what are the gifts I've been given that they don't disappear all of a sudden just because I'm alone? It might be more difficult to do, but they're still available. And so I think really kind of pinpoint what are those things we can hang on to and to do them well. And just encourage all of us when we think about how do we continue to grow spiritually, we can sometimes do way too much, almost like a diet. Like, I'm going to jump into this diet, I'm going to cut out all my carbs for the next 40 days. Well, that's frankly almost impossible. And if we jump off at that point, we're probably going to fail within 3 days and just stop. And so the same thing with prayer, saying if we set very unhelpful or unhealthy expectations that are just too much, we're not going to do it. And so to kind of say, Lord, what are the things that I'm being called to do now? Start small. Keep it stable, keep it steady. And as we develop that pattern, kind of grow from there with the Lord. But that'd be my two things that I would think about are, how do I love the people that I am with? Even if I'd rather be somewhere else, love the people we are with right now. And then also pick those one or two things that we can easily do in prayer that keep us connected, not just to our family, but also then to the Lord. What's your perspective on that?
Mine? Well, my thought is kind of, if you're forced to live like a monk, the church has a bunch of wisdom on this. There are guys who would run out to the desert and live with God. And so wouldn't be the worst time to read St. Athanasius' biography of Anthony of the Desert. Just find a person who was in a situation of isolation. Not everyone's called to be St. Anthony of the Desert, but it's good to get an appreciation for what the monks have done. And one author I like use the example that monks are like lightning rods that absorb kind of with their prayers kind of absorb the harm. Their prayers offer a shield of protection for everyone.
Which
And
we should appreciate.
which we should appreciate, and we can do that too. And so, living a life of prayer, keeping each other in our prayers by name. If you have intentions, it's helpful just to write them down and tuck them into a place that you'll see so you'll remember. And so we can stay connected in a certain way through our prayers. And
Yeah, and also to remember too that if we were called in a certain sense to live like a monk, recognize that monks and nuns that live a very sheltered life have a very routine life. So they go to bed at a very certain time, wake up at a very certain time. And so to say, are we doing those basic things well that will help us feel better? Am I getting more sleep? Am I getting outside? Don't just lock ourselves in our house. Again, I pray a rosary most every day, and when I do that, I'm always walking, running, biking. I'm getting outside, trying to do those things that are going to help us to stay sane. And if we stay sane, it makes it much easier for the Lord to reach us.